Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you're all safe at home and doing well. Welcome to our virtual open house. My name is Abdulrahman. I am the moderator of the event. And our guest speaker for today is Dr. Stefan. He's a clinical psychologist and a CUD psychology professor at Canadian University, Dubai. He'll be covering the topic of coping with anxiety, loneliness, and COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Stefan, I give the stage to you.
Thank you, Abdulrahman. Do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Stefan.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So hello to all. Listen, I'm talking to you from my phone. My computer decided to become independent and refused to work properly. And I hope you see me well. So as Abdulrahman, my friend, mentioned, I'm Dr. Stefan Kaben. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I'm a professor of psychology at the Canadian University, Dubai. So we are here to discuss together the confinement and meaning being locked in and not being able to do what we used to do, being free to go wherever we want, and so on and so forth, and all its effects psychologically, but also physically. It has also some physical impact, as we'll see. So we want also today to see how this also could be a chance for us to develop new skills, get to know ourselves and each other better, and so to look at the positive impact. So one first thing I want to state, and I'm sure most of you know it, we are first of all social creatures. We need others to live, to talk to work with, and we are also creatures of habits. The habits we develop every day, we have a tendency to repeat them. Might be the times at which we go to bed, time at which we eat, the time at which we play games for some of you, and so on and so forth. So we have these habits, and we have a tendency to repeat the same over and over. I remember in February when we started mentioning this virus, very few people took it seriously. A lot of people thought it was going to be just like the normal flu, seasonal flu, and that we shouldn't be worried that much. And then little after little, from the news, the communication from the government, we started being told and learning that people started dying, and the number of deaths increased every day, and in some countries much worse than others. So people started worrying. They started saying, "My gosh, this seems to be serious." But that was a worry. That was anxiety. But then when the government, including here, started telling people, now we're going to want you to do your work in order to have the country recover, diminish the number of people dying and getting infected, we're going to ask you to stay home. Some companies started asking their workers to work from home. Universities, as you know, started asking faculty like me to teach from home and students to learn from home. So suddenly the whole thing changed. Even those of you that are used to use multimedia, that was something different, because the multimedia was a choice. We decided, okay, I'm going to get in touch with people through WhatsApp and so on. Now it's not a choice anymore. We are locked in. So we have to use multimedia to work. We have to use multimedia to communicate, and multimedia, of course, to watch movies and so on and so forth. So the first few days were days where people were just saying, listen, I mean, this is not so tough. We can do it. I don't want to mention those who are not respecting the rules. So after the first few days, then people started, my gosh, it's getting long. When I chat with my friends, my students, and so on, we started hearing the same thing. This is getting long. When is it going to stop? What am I going to do? And so on and so forth. And when people are locked in, they feel things like anxiety, especially those who already suffer from anxiety. They start being tense. They started feeling depressed. And those things are going to impact their behavior, those habits I was mentioning. People are going to start we see that a lot of researchers talk about that. We see people starting to sleep more. start eating more, start also perhaps not having the ability to exercise as much as they should, me included. And so all these habits were changed. And a lot of people got into that mental state, because it's a mental state of almost waiting, giving up in many areas, and waiting, and just listening every day to the news and hoping that the government is going to say, okay, now guys, you're free to go, you can go out again. If you look around you in many countries, they're hesitating. In Europe, some countries that are starting to get better in terms of infection and so on and so forth, are thinking about allowing, for example, primary school to start and so on. But the physicians everywhere are saying, no, you cannot do that. We're not ready. So we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. And as a psychologist, I can tell you this: people facing uncertainty, they get anxious. And when people get anxious, they don't think the same way. So a lot of negative thoughts occur in our mind. One example I'd like to, if I wanted to give an image for you to understand, is the difference between an explosion and an implosion. An explosion, I'll start with the implosion. An implosion is when the pressure from outside, is stronger than the inside, so you can get crushed. Like, for example, submarines who go too deep in the ocean and so on and so forth might, if they're not meant to or made to go that deep, can be crushed because the outside pressure is very strong. The explosion is when the pressure is stronger inside than outside. If you go to space without any protective gears, you will explode, because the pressure inside your body is stronger than the outside. Now, if we apply it to the psychology field, what I mean is when you are outside, you're working, you have friends, you do your everyday task, the stimulation from the outside, in terms of noise, in terms of people we talk to, in terms of work, are very strong. They are stronger than what's happening inside for most of us. So that's going to keep a lot of thoughts, a lot of potential negative thoughts, and so on, a lot of emotions in. But now, confined, what happens is that stimulation from outside is not as strong now anymore. So a lot of things inside of us, in terms of emotions, potential sadness that we repressed, potential negative thoughts that we put aside, and we were able to control because of that external stimulation. Well, now they're coming out. They're coming to the surface. And a lot of us are dealing with things that we tried to ignore for a long time. So now, what can we do? Well, the first thing that some of you might not realize, it's all of this is just it's a part of our mind. The way we look at things, the way we face thoughts, the way we face stress, and so on and so forth. It's really up to our mind, to the way we look at things, and to the belief that we can do it. We can really go through it. But the only way, again, to do that is going back to the pattern, is to look at your day, and we'll be discussing that obviously in a few minutes, to look at your day and telling yourself that this is every day is a new day for me, and I have to fill it up with things. It could be planning our day with daily tasks, which I recommend strongly. Keeping a healthy pattern of sleeping the same time every day, waking up the same time in the morning. Our brain is also is used to patterns, likes patterns in terms of deciding when to start, when to inject such and such neurotransmitters, or when to ask the pancreas to inject insulin, or the stomach to start developing acid for digestion. All these things, the brain is used to do it at the same time. It likes it. But now, if we start, because of this confinement, waking up some days at 9 a.m., some other days at 11, some I know go sleep until in the middle of the afternoon, and so on and so forth, or at different times. One day at 10, another time at 2, and so on. Well, the brain does not like that. It doesn't know anymore when to inject such and such hormone or neurotransmitter that we need, or to function, or to sleep, and so on and so forth. Reading. I know I say that to a lot of my students. In my generation, we used to read a lot. We didn't have multimedia, so I used to read a lot. I still read a lot today because, again, it's a habit that I have. Reading, this is our chance, or to those at least who do not read much, is the chance for them to say, you know what, I'm going to develop new habits. I'm going to read a book. Okay? And today you can find these books on PDF online, like a ton of them. If you have them physically, it's better. But again, that's as long as you read them, online is fine. And the last recommendation I'm going to give, and it might again develop in our during our discussion, is this is also our chance to know our parents, our friends better. If you're locked in the house with your parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters, siblings, yeah, sometimes we have tensions together and so on and so forth. But it is the best time in the world, for example, to know your parents better, to ask them questions about their past, about what they were doing when you were young. Did they younger? When did they ever face things like this? How do they feel now about this? Are they anxious? Do they feel good about it? What type of advice they might give you, and so on and so forth. And getting a chance to know the people we live with. In the normal life, when we were not confined, we didn't have much of that chance, because in the evenings when you get back home, we have homework, we are tired, we're hungry. Now we have the time. And I think that would be one of the most positive things that I would see, is that if families can get stronger, get to know each other, understand why sometimes before confinement we had tensions, we had conflicts, talk clearly with our family, letting them know how we feel, and so on. So this is again another chance for us to really become stronger and get out of this confinement better, not worse, but better. So these are I could give you hundreds of advice that I give to my patients, but here it's up to, we're all different. It's up to us to decide what we want to do. The term resilience, you don't have a lot of people who understand the term resilience. Some people take it as a synonymous of courage. I take it as a synonymous of not giving up. We face challenges in our life, regardless if it's during confinement or non-confinement. If we look at it as a challenge, means it has a solution. And if we learn to get to face those challenges, trying to solve them and to get out of them better, then we become winners. And I'm saying winners as a positive thing here. So again, confinement, being locked in, not good, absolutely. But your day, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, it's your day. And you decide what you want to do with that day. You decide how do you want to feel at the end of that day. Do you want to feel like complete, having done something interesting, learn something interesting, perhaps help some people online or at home, help some families with some problems through discussions and so on. Then you become a winner. And then you'll feel much more in control of your days. And that confinement, of course, we don't like it. I don't like it either. But that confinement would have much less negative effect on us, because we would be in control of our days. Abdurrahman, I'm ready for questions.
Hi, Dr. Stefan. We don't have any questions regarding anxiety as of yet.
Okay. Do you have any questions? And if you want, I had like actually a few things I wanted to to add. All the psychologists, when you read the literature and so on and so forth, they all agree on that impact of confinement, and they discover actually a lot of negative impact, both physically and psychologically, right? For example, in 2018, a research study, they did that on 6,000 American adults. And they found that 28% of them felt dissatisfied with their lives and relationship with your families and community, compared to 7% of respondents. But in fact, people don't even need to be physically isolated to feel a sense of loneliness. This is very important. So that the feeling of loneliness is not related 100% to this confinement. Some people feel lonely even when surrounded by other people. Also, that psychologist points out that people can be socially engaged while still being physically isolated also, thanks to modern, of course, remote communication. We just mentioned that. So every psychologist mentions this to strengthen or sees it as a positive thing to use this multimedia. I'm thinking about my students to whom I don't allow to use their phone in class. I'm always critical of that, of course. And now I find myself telling, but use your multimedia, but this time use it for a positive reason, to communicate with others, to learn.
Dr. Stefan, we have one question from Ahmed Tahir. How do you get to sticking to your habits?
How do you get to stick into your habits? Well,
yeah,
we all, as I mentioned, we all have habits. All of us, we have habits. Some positive, some negative habits, right? I talked about oversleeping. Some people have a tendency, perhaps, to not to sleep at the same time, not regularly. Sometimes, or they binge on sleeping on the weekend, which is not good. So I'm going to add something to that question. How do we do to stick to our positive habits? Well, our positive habits are often it's those habits that makes us feel happy and complete. During this isolation or confinement, they are challenged, absolutely. So if your habit is, if you have a habit to walk every day long distances, well, you cannot do that, but you can still do it in your apartment if you have treadmill. Or I know some students, for example, mentioned even like in the same room, walking around the room. Well, it's less exciting. I mean, that walking outside and so on. If it's about reading, well, this is your chance even to read more. So what you have to do is to look at your habits, and this is your chance again, and select which habits are good for me and which habits are less good. So you know what, I'm going to work about increasing my positive habits, and perhaps find a way, to get rid of those habits that I might not like as much. Eating is going to be a problem for a lot of us. It's so easy. I mean, you have the fridge, you're getting bored, you start a movie, you go to the fridge, you go to have a sandwich, and then you do the same an hour or two after, and so on. So it becomes, it's not very good. So the choice is between the positive habits and the negative one, the one that you don't like, the one that you wish you could change. Well, this is your chance to change them.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. I have another question. We have actually a lot of questions now. Another question is from Maliha. Do you have any idea how long or how further online education will go?
Oh, that's a complex question. Can you repeat that?
How much further is the online education going to go?
Honestly, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could answer that. I cannot answer that, because the decision makers at the government level, university level will decide about those things. However, what I can tell you is I think we will leave this confinement with having more and more online education. I think this in the US, for example, is something that's used quite a bit. And I think in the UAE as well, I think we're going to start having more and more online education. I don't think we'll stop the physical type of education, going on campus and so on, at least not now. But I could foresee that in, say, the next 10, 20 years, potentially having most of education online.
Ahmed Tahir goes back to his questions. He's saying, I find it hard to sticking to practicing a new skill.
The answer I said to Ahmed, my friend Ahmed Tahir, is that this is why change is difficult. It's not easy to change. I can tell you that as a psychologist. One of the job I do is to help people change. Change is, it's something that is a behavior or a habit, as I said, it's something that sticks in us. Especially when you develop it for years, right? It is not going to be easy to stop it. So I'm trying to find an example here to give you. Look at reading. I'm going to be on purpose. I'm going to take a positive one. You're not used to read. You don't like reading, and so on and so forth, right? So of course, if I ask you to read a book today, you're not going to be very happy about it, and I don't think you'll read it. But you can say, for example, you say, you know what? I'm going to be reading 10 pages this week. I mean, per day, it's better, to be honest. Okay, X number of pages this week. I'm going to. Or you increase that every week, or you keep on with the same number of pages that you read, and you'll find yourself at the end of the month potentially reading a full book. And I know for some, it's something rare. They don't read often. Eating the same thing, that's even tougher, is to tell yourself, well, listen, I will not I will not touch that fridge between such and such time. You can have like, you can write a list of things for you to do during the day, but you need to stick to them, because there is nothing worse than finding yourself at the end of the day, looking at the list, at the schedule you had, and realizing that you did very little of that schedule. So you have to have a reasonable schedule. Because anyway, when you start writing something on a schedule, if you're going to do it or not. So don't get yourself disappointed at the end of the day by writing too much or asking too much from yourself. Start small and increase little after little. I take reading as an example because it's something so crucial. I'm always trying to push my students to read, and it's something amazing. We learn so much through that. For Ahmed, yes, it is. Habits are very hard to break, but if it's something that's really important for you, if you decide to do it, and if you stick into trying to do it, you will be able to do it. And I can tell you that as a fact. This is what I do. I see a lot of people getting into that change mode, and it's always the same. Those who do not give up, those who are resilient, those who really decide to really change, at the end of the day, they're able to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. We have another questions from Karam. How can we deal with stress of virtual exams and the pressure set on students?
Ooh. First of all the students go through the same stress, right? However, there are ways to deal with stress. One thing that's very important, and it's very basic. When we are stressed, when we have a lot of pressure from the environment, might be courses, exams, it might be at work, and so on, or it might be personal stress. One of the first things that people don't do right and should learn how to do, and you can find apps on that, is breathing. I've been teaching breathing for a long time. And when you, every breath you take, your brain is going to be using 25% of that, a quarter of that. So if you start by not breathing properly, your brain is going to get 25% of very little. So the first thing we need to do, truly, to take a few minutes a day, to sit down. You can find those apps on diaphragm breathing and so on, where you breathe very deeply, slowly, 5 seconds in, inhale through the nose, 5 seconds out, exhale through the mouth. 5 seconds means slow, and it's your stomach that's coming out, not your chest. So if you do that a few times and you relax, you put yourself in a position of relaxation, the way you learn it is you lie down in bed, you put your phone on your stomach, or a book, better, and you do the breathing, and you need to see the book or the phone going up and down. That's telling you that you're breathing properly. If it's not, it means you're breathing through the chest and you're not breathing deeply enough. So that's first thing, is like deep relaxation, right? And then after that, because everything is part of the mind, everything is in the mind. You and I, we can face exactly the same task, you being completely relaxed and me being stressed, right? So it's in the mind. So we just review all the things we have to do that stress us, and we get into control of that. One of the things that's important, especially when you talk about studies, and so on, is planning. People who don't plan will get stressed. People who don't plan will have more of a tendency to procrastinate. But if you give yourself, again, that schedule I mentioned before, and you go, and it has to be a reasonable schedule. If you put too much in your plate, as we say, it's not going to work, right? So the breathing, and then challenging your negative thoughts. We all have negative thoughts. We all face thoughts that makes us doubt of ourselves often. Those thoughts are our thoughts. Nobody gave us our thoughts. They come from somewhere, it's ours. So that means we can face them and we can challenge them. Truly, one of silly, why wouldn't I be able to do this, right? Or simple thing like everything is fine, I'm okay, I'll do it, right? And then every time you do something, as small as it is, you're going to feel better. That's going to reinforce you into doing something more next time, and so on. So find a way to plan your day. Find a way to plan those tasks. If you have a plan, your stress will go down, that I promise you. But if you add to that breathing and relaxing, that's going to be even better.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. I just want to remind everybody that our admission session will be in a while after Dr. Stefan's session. So any questions regarding admissions will be answered after that. And Dr. Stefan, you have a lot of questions. Actually, the next question is by Fatima. Is oversleeping and overeating linked to anxiety?
Actually, oversleeping is more often linked to depression. You might have some oversleeping with anxiety, but usually it's sleeping less, not being able to sleep a full night, waking up during the night, and so on and so forth. When you oversleep, usually it's related to depression. And please listen here. When I say related to depression, I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm not talking about those who suffer serious depression. We all get depressed from time to time in our life. And in those moments when we feel depressed, we have a tendency to give up. We have a tendency to not to think positively about ourselves, about the world, about our life, and so on, right? So these thoughts, as I mentioned before, you can change them. You can challenge them. Don't let these thoughts control you. You really can do what I said, relaxation and so on, and then you get rid of, or you challenge each thought one at a time. So overeating, well, this is another one here. You can overeat or don't eat enough when you're depressed. You can give up and say you spend your time sleeping, you don't eat as much, or you can, of course, binge into eating. Anxiety, it's more being tense. It's more having a lot of worries. I always say that if there's one word I can associate to anxiety is what if. The word what if is in the mind of someone anxious. What if this? What if that? There are so many things that they are worried about that they become really, really tense. And then, yes, then after that, some people get into doing something that are not always positive, certainly not positive, by the way. And but anxiety, the best way to deal with anxiety again, it's I promise the breathing. If you do this breathing and I'm talking about, you will see by yourself the effect. If you look at someone who's anxious, if you look at them breathing, they breathe like they're unconsciously, very little breathing and very fast, like almost like a dog that's panting, right? That doesn't give enough oxygen to the brain. The brain does not have the ability to think properly. So that same brain is going to be worrying. It's going to have the impression that it can face nothing. It's not able to face nothing. And plus it exhausts us, right? Because we find ourselves often in hypoglycemia. You know, some of you know how this works. Anxious, develop adrenaline frees sugar from the liver. You find yourself in hypoglycemia, plus other hormones that are not good in terms of big numbers, like histamine, for example, and so on. That gives us the impression like this, would not be being able to breathe properly and so on. Those things can be controlled by deep breathing. And I've been practicing that for a long time, even on myself, and I can promise you it works.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. We have a question from Mihar, and it's also related to Rania's question. Good evening. I would like to ask if isolation in this situation can cause people to become depressed. And Rania's question, I think they're both related. Professor, what will be the impact of this isolation on people once this is all over? And are they allowed to go out? Are they still going to be are they still going to be the same, or will they be less of an extrovert? Will they stop socializing and interacting with people?
Can we repeat the first question, please? And then I'll answer Rania after that. Repeat that.
Sure. So the first question, good evening. I would like to ask if isolation in this situation can cause people to become depressed.
Okay, absolutely. Isolation will cause some people to get depressed. As I mentioned before, often it is those people or some people that already have problems with depression. Okay, that's the obvious ones. Or people, for example, who face that environment of being isolated and feel completely discouraged, stop being active, start sleeping more, and so on and so forth. So every day that goes by, at the end of the day, they don't feel happy about their days. They don't feel they have accomplished something. And that at one point has a toll on the person, and the person is absolutely will develop depression. I'm not I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about that type of depression that all of us face. Going back to Rania question, yes, if I don't know how long this confinement is going to be, but during that confinement, People who develop new habits, like we talked about overeating, oversleeping, and other, might find themselves out of this confinement into having those habits, keeping those habits, until it'll take them another step, another effort to be able to change them. I would prefer, as I mentioned, that people use this confinement to develop a new positive habits. And then, yes, when the confinement stops, they might find themselves, to be continuing those positive habits. At the end of the day, we have to understand something. We are responsible and we are in control of our behavior. That's something that people forget. So everything I do, it is something that I do because I want to do it. I'm not talking about doing things under threats and stuff like that, right? But it is my choice to go to the fridge, okay, and take a sandwich. It is my choice to go to bed and sleep 12, 14 hours, right? So some would tell you, no, it's not my choice because I feel down. No, it's your choice, because what you could do is force yourself. At one point, there is an effort to be made. Is force yourself to get out of bed at the same time every morning, and go to bed around the same time. Some people say, but what about the weekend? The weekend, yeah, of course, an hour or two doesn't change much, but the brain likes habits. The brain functions very well when habits are there, especially, of course, positive habits. So absolutely, this confinement is going to impact a lot of us. But if you do what you have to do, it's going to impact you positively. And when the confinement stops, you're going to feel very happy, right, about this freedom. And by the way, you realize, I don't remember who said, you realize the importance of something only after you lose it. And I think this is an amazing image with confinement. We took that freedom as granted, going out, in whenever we wanted, and so on and so forth. And suddenly, no, you can't. And now we realize how much we like that time, how great that time was. I have some patients, for example, they were very critical of their work, of their colleagues, and so on. And suddenly during this confinement, they started talking to those people with whom they had conflicts. They started appreciating their work. They start having plans on what they will do when they go back to work, and so on and so forth. So if you keep on, you continue using your brain and having those positive thoughts I mentioned, try to have as many positive thoughts as you can. And they are easy. They're all around us. There are always reasons to have positive thoughts, but there's always reasons to have negative thoughts. So it's our choice.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. Again, we have a lot of questions actually from the audience. Once again, I remind you that admission questions, we'll start the admission session at 4:40, and that's when we're going to answer the admission sessions, tuition fees, admission requirements, how to apply, etc. The next question is from Princess Leash. How to stay motivated during confinement?
It goes back again to what we said earlier. What is motivation? Motivation. I know I said that to my students a few times. I tell them I don't believe in the word lazy. Lazy is a judgment. It's just a stamp we put on someone, and we tell, well, that person is not worth nothing, right? I don't like that. That's not my way to look at things. I prefer to talk about motivation, because as soon as I say someone is not motivated or I am not motivated, it means I can find a way to motivate the person. And yes, it all depends on what you do during the day. It's very easy. It's very easy to be demotivated during confinement because, again, as I mentioned before, the stimulation that you used to take as granted, well, you don't have that anymore, right? Or at least you have much less of that. So you need to make yourself a list, and I promise it works. You need to make yourself a list of things to do during the day or the week. Things that are work, absolutely, you need to do some work, and things that also that you need to enjoy things. What type of thing? And usually I do, what's like, when you eat, the dessert is at the end. Do first some work, and then at the end, reward yourself by doing something, that you like. And if you keep on, and if you force yourself not to give up, I promise you, that demotivation is going to disappear. It's human to be demotivated, but it's also human to find ways to get motivated. And there are a lot of reasons of why we should be motivated.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. We have a question from Philip, how to avoid procrastination. I think we already answered that, didn't we?
Yeah, it's by planning. Absolutely. I used to make a joke, I bought a book about procrastination, but I didn't read it yet. So that's how you deal with procrastination. You plan, you have a schedule. Believe me, I'm not saying have a schedule for your life here. I'm saying have a schedule for the day, something that you need to be do. You rank them from A to Z. A being the most important one, the one that you really have to do that day. The others are the cherry on the cake, right? So, and you cannot do B before you do A. So you force yourself into that pattern, and please reward yourself every time. Yes, you have the right to indulge in something, some nice ice cream, some nice movie, but you need to do first the work that you have to do. So have that schedule, have that on a piece of paper on the wall next to your desk or something, and so have that every morning. It's there, and you take your pen and you put an X next to each task after you complete them.
All right, so we have a questions from Nidi. Again, it's related to exams. Any advice to students who are stressed due to exams being canceled or postponed? I think this is for high school students, because a lot of systems like the British and Indian system, their exams are canceled or postponed.
But again, listen, I'm talking to the student who asked that question and to the other students. You have no control on that. That's not up to you, right? So getting anxious about something on which you have no control doesn't help. So by realizing that, you know what, you have to accept things that you have no control on. I mean, you have to accept them, right? You have to live with them. Focus on things that you have a control on. That's what you need to do, is to look at things. You can also take, again, a piece of paper, and you can list on the left things you cannot control, and to the right things you can control. And the things you cannot control on the left, what do you want to do? There's nothing you can do, right? Things you can control, focus on that, because you need your energy to do those things. And a lot of people find themselves actually going back to procrastination and stress and so on. A lot of people, find themselves feeling having those feelings, because they're trying absolutely to change those things that they cannot change, and they don't have enough energy at the end of the day to change the things that they can. And this is, again, it sounds silly, it sounds logical, but it is true. It is true. So please focus on the things that you can change. Remember, for potential exams canceled, whatever, I don't know if it's going to happen, where, and so on, but you won't be the only one. That means a lot of other students are facing the same problem. So please focus on things that you have a control on. Things you cannot control, you cannot do much.
I don't know if we answered Rania's question about people becoming extroverts once they leave the pandemic.
Oh, the extrovert. Okay. Well, Rania knows better, because she's a student in psychology, a good one actually. We talked about it's not easy to change someone's personality. If you're an introvert, you're an introvert. If you're an extrovert, you're an extrovert. That's part of us. It's it's partly genetic, it's partly learned, and so on and so forth. So I don't think someone who's an introvert will become an extrovert and the other way around. We might see some fluctuations, some changes, and so on, right? So I don't think we'll see that, but we'll see. This is where it's important. We might see changes, and we will see changes. We'll see changes in behavior, not in personality, but in behavior. We'll see people starting to do things they've never done before. We might see some people becoming.
Dr. Stefan, sorry, your connection is very weak at the moment.
So what do you want me to do? Yes, I'm here.
Okay, your connection is a little bit unstable.
Okay, and now?
Okay, you can go on now. We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
did you hear what I said before? So did you hear what I said before?
Just like 1 minute before.
Okay, so what I mentioned is the changes in terms of an introvert becoming an extrovert, or an extrovert being an introvert. I don't think we'll see that, because personality doesn't change as much as we know, and we know that. And I said Rania is a student in psychology and a good one, and she knows that, right? But changes in behavior, yes. we're going to see some people developing new habits, new behaviors, and so on, as I said, and hopefully it's going to be positive habits. It's going to be up to us. I include myself in this. It's up to us on how we will be when this confinement stops. We all are responsible for our own behavior.
All right. I apologize for any questions that are not answered. If you want them answered, please email us to info@cud.ac.ae. I will leave the email in the chat box. Thank you so much, Dr. Stefan. That was very, very helpful, very insightful. We're now going to move on to Mayasa to talk about the admission requirements and the university in general. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Stefan. That was really great.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It was really my pleasure, and bye to all. And I'm sorry for the technical problems.
No worries, we got it sorted.
Okay. Bye-bye.
That gave me anxiety.
I know, I was anxious too. I started breathing.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Abdurrahman.
And Mayasa, I welcome you on the spotlight.
So I'm leaving now. What do I do here, Abdurrahman?
You can stay to watch Mayasa.
Okay, absolutely. It's a pleasure. I didn't see her. Oh, Mayasa, good stuff.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Mayasa. I'm a student recruiter at CUD, and I'm also an alumni. Some of you may already know me or have met me at your schools. I've been to a lot of schools in the UAE. So I'm just gonna share this with you guys. It's just a little presentation, and we can kind of go over everything that you guys, I think you had a few questions about admissions and all that, so I'm going to try to cover all of that in the presentation. So to begin with, the most important thing when it comes to admission in any university that's accredited by the Ministry of Education, you need to have something called an equivalency certificate. This is a certificate that just says that you graduated high school, but it's mandatory to all high school students in the UAE and outside of the UAE. And basically, you just apply for it from the Ministry of Education. But no matter what system you've studied, whatever it is, you need to bring this certificate. And I just want to clarify that we know the current situation in the UAE. We know about COVID-19. So I just wanted to let you guys know that everything will be looked at case-to-case basis by our admissions department. So don't worry if you can't do an exam or you can't do anything. Everything will be looked at and according to the national situation. So don't worry about that. The next thing, most common systems in the UAE, I'm just going to go over them really quickly, of the things you need to bring if you want to apply. Our applications, I'll go over how to apply also. So American system, you just need your grade 12. You need your 10 and 11 and 12, but grade 12 at the beginning, just to get at least your conditional acceptance. You need a math requirement, so you need either a 500 in MSAT math or a 450 in SAT 1. You need to have an English proficiency exam like a TOEFL or an Ielts. This is on all programs. You need a 5.0 in Ielts, 61 IBT, or 1,100 in MSAT if you've done that. So we accept any of those. Next is the British system. You need 5 IGCSEs and 2 AS or 1 A-level subject. You also need an English requirement, so a 61 in IBT, 5.0 or 1,100.
Sorry, Mayasa, to cut you off. Can you go back to that slide? Because there are some questions specific to that slide.
This one or the British system?
This one, yeah, this one.
Okay, what's the question?
So do all students need to have written the SATs?
If you have an MSAT, so basically what we always say is equivalency is the most important. So if you apply for an equivalency with your MSAT and get the equivalency, then that's fine. If you do the SAT 1, also fine, only in math, by the way, 450. Whichever one can get you in, but MSAT also, from cases that I've seen, even like anyone that's done MSAT math has gotten a equivalency. So you should be fine if you have that. But it is mandatory. If a math requirement is mandatory, if you've studied in an American system, it's mandatory, whether it's MSAT or SAT 1.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions about this one?
There is the question, students who don't have the IELTS or TOEFL right now, can they apply for the summer semester
They can
or the
still
fall
apply.
semester?
Yeah, they can still apply. I urge you with whatever you have to apply, whether it's your high school, whatever it is that you have, even if you have predicted grades, I encourage you to at least start your application, get your application started, get at least a conditional admission in the meantime until you receive your basically your, whatever it is that's missing. And like I said, we are looking at everything case to case basis. So it's okay. I mean, obviously not everyone's going to have everything. So we're going to look at it case to case. So don't freak out.
And the other question is, sorry, the other question is, what was the question? Yeah, how do you get the equivalency certificate?
The equivalency certificate, you take your last 3 years of high school along with your MSAT or SAT 1 math and your English proficiency, whether it's Ielts, TOEFL, or MSAT English, and you take it to the Ministry of Education and you apply for an equivalency certificate. You can probably apply online also during this period of time, and then you'll get it as a little certificate that just says that you've completed all the requirements, and they only need copies also. They don't need originals.
And if you have done IB English literature in SL, do you still need to do the TOEFL or IELTS or any English requirement?
Yes, it is a requirement to every single system.
All right.
It's an English requirement that is for everybody. The other thing I wanted to say also, to get the equivalency, you need to have your high school transcripts attested by the KHTA or the Ministry of Education. They all need to be attested. If you studied in Dubai, it's KHTA.
All right.
Okay, the IB diploma, which I think you just asked about that too. Students must have 21 points with 3 HL subjects, 3 SL subjects, and they need to have covered English, math, and science. These are all mandatory subjects. For English requirements, same thing. English requirement, you'll see it that it's repeated in every single system because it is mandatory for anyone that is going to study at CUD.
Sorry to interrupt you once again, Mayasa.
Yes.
Is our requirements the same for all the programs, or is it different from program to program?
It's technically they're similar, but it's a little different comparing to what program. So American is not the same as British. British is not the same as IB. IB is not the same as CBSE. They're all a little bit different in their own ways, but I mean they're similar. They're close to each other. Like they all need English, math, and science. They all need English requirements. Depends on what major you're studying. You will need a certain math requirement. So.
Okay, and there's one more question, I think, which was already answered. The MSATs are canceled right now because of COVID-19. What's the procedure for these students?
Again, like I said, I encourage you to start your application with whatever you have, and everything is looked at case-to-case basis. So we're seeing what we can do. So maybe we'll do interviews for students, or we'll look at grades temporarily until the centers start to open again. So we're looking at it case to case at the moment.
All right, let me see if I have more. The high school certificate has to be translated in the UAE, or it can be translated in my country?
It should be a test. Obviously, there's attestations that you need to have. It does need to be attested in the UAE embassy that's in your home country, or in the embassy of your home country in the UAE. But I think it's easier to just get it attested in the UAE embassy in your home country. And for that, it needs to be translated, and then they'll attest it. So I don't think it really matters.
As long as the translation is legal translation, then it doesn't matter if it's in UAE or.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, Master, you can go ahead.
Okay, so last one, this is a really common one too, is CBSE curriculum. You need to have your completion of grade 12, and also same thing, you need to apply with the last 3 years of high school, so 10, 11, and 12. If math is not taken in 12th grade, it must be taken in 10th standard. And obviously, if you haven't taken math in 12th grade, then it cuts out some programs. Like you can't, like for example, engineering, you need to have math in your grade 12. English requirements, same thing. Even if you've taken English, even if you've taken advanced English, you still need to have a English requirement, which is either a TOEFL, an Ielts, or an MSAT. Any questions?
Sorry, I muted you by mistake. I wanted to unmute myself. For the CBSC, do we need to do the general math placement test?
It depends on your grade in math. If you have a lower grade in grade 12, there is a math requirement. Like you need to do a test requirement, but it's just an internal exam. It's just to know your level. And if you pass, then you'll go on to math 1. If you do not pass, you can retake it, or you can take pre-calculus.
There's a lot of questions about how to apply for the equivalent certificate if you studied in a British system.
Same thing. You take your IGCSEs and your AS or A levels, all attested, and you apply with your English proficiency exam like MSAT, Ielts, or TOEFL, and you apply through the Ministry of Education portal.
All right. Okay, go ahead. There is questions about transfer to Canada as well. We'll get to
Okay.
yeah. You're gonna get to that, right?
Yeah, I'll get to that. It's just brief. So when I get to the programs one, just ask me whatever there is about the transfer to Canada.
So they want to know which universities they can go to.
Okay, so I'll cover it now. So basically, we have partnerships with different programs and partnerships with the university. So for example, there is 2+2 programs. So you can do 2 years here and 2 years in Canada, or you can do 1 year here and then 3 years in Canada. But the universities that we are directly signed with, there's 2+2 programs. So for example, if you're doing communications, you can do 2 years in CUD and then 2 years in Brock University. And if you're doing engineering, for example, you can do 2 years here, then 2 years in Queens. So it just depends on which program, but it doesn't limit you to that university. You can apply to any university in Canada. As you just have to, obviously, if you have 1 year, it's less courses, so you can kind of, even if you want to change your major, you wouldn't be like risking that much. So yeah, you can apply to any university in Canada. It doesn't really limit you, but obviously 2+2, there's a pathway built for you.
There's another question about the IELTS. I'll answer it. Is it possible to apply without the IELTS, but still do it later? Yes, we do accept students before they get the IELTS or TOEFL. We understand the situation right now. Students are given 1 semester to provide the TOEFL or IELTS. Hopefully by then the tests will be open again.
Yeah.
Mayasa, just letting you know, Svetlana will be talking about the discounts and fee reductions after you're done your presentation.
Great. Yeah, there's a slide, so we can talk about that. Okay, so next. This is just the online application, how to apply. So basically, students can apply easily through our online portal. It's on the website, or you can go to cud.ac.ae/apply online. You start your application, shown here, and then these are the documents you require. You can still apply with at least a passport copy and whatever predicted grades or grade 10, 11, 12, whatever you have at the moment, your predicted grades, and whatever, if you have an IELTS or an MSAT, you can apply with that. So that's initially to get just the conditional acceptance. You'll need whatever the basics, but later on you will need to provide everything and meet the admission requirements fully. And hopefully when we open up again, you need to bring the originals. This is also very important, to bring the originals fully attested. Next, so these are just our programs. So you can choose from over 20 accredited programs. We have the Faculty of Architecture and Interior Design. We have the Faculty of Engineering, Applied Science and Technology. We have the Faculty of Communication, Arts and Sciences, and we have the Faculty of Management. So all of these are right here. Yeah. Within the first year, I always tell students that come in within the first year, you are taking kind of general courses. So if you decide to change your major within your first year, don't worry, you wouldn't be missing out on anything. You can still transfer, you can still change your major without losing any courses. So for the first year, you're pretty much safe to change your major. Next is fees. This is just a general, if you're taking the normal load of around 10 courses per year, this is the full price for each course per year for 2 semesters. And tuition fees are paid based on credit hours taken per semester. So you can take less credit hours, and that would mean paying less during the semester. But this is just an average. And they could take less than the amount that we recommend. Next is, Svetlana, I'll leave this to you if you want to talk about the fee reductions and scholarships.
Thank you, Mayasa. I will welcome Svetlana now to, Svetlana is the recruitment manager. She will talk about the scholarships and the fee reductions that we offer right now. Go ahead, Svetlana.
Thank you, Abdurrahman and Mayasa. So I would like to say that we are offering currently 30% fee reduction for summer, which starts in May, and for fall semester, which starts in September. And we do offer scholarships, as you can see, up to 50%. And you can combine both, which can be a fee reduction up to 60%. Scholarships, you can apply on our website by filling in our application form and sending it to email that is mentioned on our website as well. And Abdurrahman, you can continue as well. What are we offering to our students? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Svetlana. So the fee reductions are available for all students. Also, all the attendees right now, we're offering free application. The application fee is usually 525 dirhams for undergraduate programs and 1,575 for master's or graduate programs. But all the attendees, we usually offer this to open houses, physical open houses. This is a virtual open house. So to get the discount, please send us an email to info@cud.ac.ae, which I mentioned earlier in the chat, and mention the title that you want the application fee waived. We will waive the application fee for you. Mayasa, you want to go through the scholarships, the how to apply for them, and
Sure. So I'll just tell you guys like a little bit more about scholarships. Okay. So basically, we offer a few different kinds of scholarships for high school students. So we have academic excellence, which is based on your grades, on your grade 12 grades. So if you have a converted 85% average and above, so if you're studying CBSE or if you're studying in the British curriculum or American, we'll convert the average into our kind of conversion rate. And if it adds up to 85% and above, you're eligible for an academic scholarship. You can still apply. I mean, if you think it's around an 85, you can still apply and we'll just convert it. I suggest applying, even if you're not sure if it's 85, there's no harm in applying. And then we have a sports scholarship, which is obviously based on your sports. If you are part of a team, if you've won competitions, if you are very active in the sports field, then you can apply for a sports scholarship. And also it comes with community hours. So you do need to work in the hours in the university. So by playing on the team or whatever it is. And then we have financial aid scholarships, which are all based on the financial situation of each student. So you can apply with bank statements, rental contract, with salary certificate of the working parents. And then based on the situation, we will give you a financial scholarship. And we also have special needs scholarships. So for students of determination or students with special needs, educational needs, they can apply for a special needs scholarship. And lastly, we have a talent scholarship. So students that are talented in whatever field, like singing, dancing, piano, instrument, they can apply for a special talent scholarship. All of these are up to 40%, except academic excellence is up to 50% of a scholarship. And this is combinable with the 30% fall 2020 reduction. So you can combine it and it can go up to 60%. So.
Thank you, Maya. So there are some questions for people who just joined. The 30% fee reduction is for the summer semester for students who register before April 30th and for the fall semester. So that's before May 30th. Every semester, we usually do offer early bird fee reductions. So it's on a semester to semester basis. The other questions is about the fee waiver. Yes, we are offering all the attendees of the current open house that we're running right now free application fee. So the application fee will be waived. The way to do that is you just need to email us to info@cud.ac.ae. I will type the email once again in the chat, so you can send us an email and we'll waive the application fee for you. Oh, there's another question about applying for visa. The visa process for international students, basically, once you are registered to the program and register your courses, you can apply for the visa. It's a very easy process. We'll just ask you for your visa, your passport copy, colored copy, and we do the application. All the process will be done from our end. So it's an easy process.
Yeah. But you need to be registered in courses. That's the most important part of the visa.
There is a question about, sorry again to interrupt you, Mayasa, about elaboration on transfer to Canada. If you can elaborate on that, just the general process, how it's done.
So basically the same thing, like I said, so you can start your first semester, first year, up to 2 years. You can start at Canadian University, Dubai, take the courses. Usually students who are transferring to Canada already know from the beginning that they're going to be transferring to Canada. So we advise them on what courses they will be taking, that they need to be taking in order to have a smooth transfer process to Canada. So if they already know they're going to transfer to Canada and they're doing communications, then we already have a set out schedule of courses that they need to be taking during their first, second, third, fourth semester in order to ensure that when they do transfer, it's a very smooth process. They've taken the correct courses and they've met the requirements they need to meet in order to transfer. And like I said, it does not limit you to the university that we have signed with in that major. You can, if you want to do communications in Ryerson, you can still apply to do communications in Ryerson. And overall, it's the same process. You just have to follow the guidelines, get good grades. That's very important, that you need to get good grades in university while you're studying at CUD. This also helps with the transfer process. And we will help you basically transfer easily. Is there anything else in specific to that question?
Go ahead. I'm answering questions on the chat directly, so you can go ahead with the presentation.
Yeah, so the last, like, again, I want to stress students that are transferring to Canada, they should be clear that they're going to transfer to Canada from the beginning. This is just to make it as simple as possible for you, that when you are transferring, you don't meet any speed bumps or anything like that. So it's smooth transition. And obviously starting a year or two at CUD is beneficial to you because you've already adapted to the Canadian environment and the Canadian values, so that when you do transfer to Canada, it's not a completely different environment. You already are in a similar environment, you were in a similar environment here, so that when you do go to Canada, it's not much of a culture shock. You've already seen a lot of the Canadian values at the university. So it does help prepare you, and it also helps prepare you for the independence you need to have when you do start university and transfer to Canada. You do need to be independent. You need to know your path. It needs planning. You need to know what you're going to be doing. So it helps prepare you for that. So when you do transfer, you feel at home. You don't feel like a complete stranger. And lastly, I just wanted to, I left my contact for me and my colleague, Christine. If you have any questions, anything about transferring, about application, anything like that, you can reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you. Abdurrahman?
Yes, I'm just going through the questions. Do you take credit transfers from Canadian colleges?
Yes. So basically, for the transfer process, no matter where you're studying, you need to have your transcript and you need to have your syllabi for the courses that are for all your courses, basically. You need your syllabi and your transcript, and that will, and then based on that, we can see what courses match ours, and then they'll be transferred, and you can continue.
All right, so the application process for all the students, it's quite easy. You just log into the website, cud.ac.ae. I'm sure you already have it, but I'll mention it again on the chat. There is apply online. Oh, thank you. You're showing it. It's a straightforward process. Again, if you need any questions, if you face any difficulties, you can contact Mayasa directly. She just shared her contact details, and Christine. And you can also email us at info@ced.ac.ae. There's a final question. What the maximum percentage of discount a student can get each semester once they are enrolled?
So as of right now, it's up to 60%. That's the maximum.
When does the summer course start?
The summer course starts in May 17th, I believe, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, can we get sports scholarship when you are an international student?
Any student, no matter where they're studying, can apply for a scholarship.
Okay, this question is quite smart. If I have a discount higher than 60%, can I give the second semester a bit of it? So if I get 80% in total, can I give the second semester 20%? That's a very smart question.
Yeah, that is a smart question. Let me get back to you on that. I'm not actually, I don't know. Abdurrahman, do you know the answer to that?
No, the answer is no, unfortunately. It's a semester by semester basis.
Yeah.
But the good news is the scholarship, once you get a scholarship, the scholarship stays with you for 1 year.
Yeah. And it's honestly, reapplying is very easy. It's the same process every semester. Just fill out the form and reapply. As long as you meet the GPA requirement to keep it, it will be yours. And
okay,
please
so
apply early, please.
Once again, I will share the email to the chat. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Mayasa, for the insights.
Thank you.
We're very sorry if we missed your questions. I believe I tried my best to get all of them. They're coming really fast, one after the other. So basically, just to summarize, you can apply with your predicted grades if you don't have your final results. Send your questions or your documents to info@ced.ac.ae. We will start your application and we'll waive the application fee for you. If you already started your application, just share your prospect ID. It will be at the you'll see it once you start the application, and we'll waive the application for you as well.
Yeah.
Again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to write us to info@ced.ac.ae, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. Thank you, Mayasa, and thank you, everyone. Wish you have a good day.
Stay safe.
The whole video has been streamed live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can go back to it if you want to check it out after. Mayasa, can you stop sharing the screen? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.